Shirley is the eldest sister of the Crane children. While she's extremely caring and supportive, she can also be very controlling to the point of becoming overbearing. Out of all the Crane children, she's the only one to have started a family of her own. She's married to Kevin, who is also her business partner. Shirley and Kevin have 2 children together, Jaden and Allie. Shirley seemingly has a successful business and is living what seems to be a loving, comfortable life. Shirley is seen acting as an anchor for her siblings, but in a more paternal way. At Nell's wedding, she's seen doing Nell's makeup and makes sure the wedding goes well. She intervenes when Luke unexpectedly shows up to the venue high. She sends Luke away, but it is revealed that she is the one who pays for his rehabilitation center, and that she has been supporting him for some time now. It is revealed that she had built Luke a smaller guest house to care for him to try to aid him in his recovery. Unfortunately, this doesn't quite work out, but it shows how much she cares for him and tries to help him. After Luke is placed in the rehab center for a long stay, Theo moves into the guest house. Shirley is seen showing to be supportive of her sister and includes her in her family life. It is seen during a family meal how much Allie adores her Aunt Theo. Theo and Shirley are very close, often showing each other emotional support and comforting each other. Steve and Shirley initially start off as head of the household for the Crane siblings after their mother's death, often seen supporting and caring for the other siblings in flashbacks. This, however, changes when Steve publishes his book. There is heavy foreshadowing when Shirley finds the box of kittens in the shed. 5 kittens seem to represent the 5 Crane children. The mother cat is gone and nowhere to be seen. They are instead being watched over by what at first glance seems to be a horrifying, ominous face. It is later revealed to be the dead remnants of an old wasp nest. The wasps are all long gone, but they have left a looming, intimidating presence behind. The symbolism and foreshadowing is clear. Olivia, like the mother cat, will disappear and leave the defenseless kittens to fend for themselves in a harsh world. Like the dead wasp nest, Hill House looms over the Cranes, ever watching and forever waiting for them. The incident with the sick kittens is Shirley's first true brush with death, and the experience left her scarred. She tries her best to mother these kittens, but as each night passes, their conditions only seems to deteriorate. It starts with the first death of the first kitten. The Cranes decide to have a small makeshift funeral for the little kitten. Olivia finds a small beautiful purple box and repurposes it as a little kitten coffin. The somber affair is cut to a horrible close when Shirley sees the kitten moving. At first, Shirley is ecstatic to see it moving, but this turns to horror when the ground beetle crawls out of the dead kitten's mouth. This, of course, horrifies Shirley and continues to haunt her as an adult. Unfortunately, this is not the end of the kitty trauma. Sometime later, Shirley and Nell attempt to feed the rest of the kittens, only to find them dead except for one kitten. Again, Shirley is excited to find a surviving kitten out of the dead litter. However, similar to the horrifying beetle incident, the kitten opens its eyes to reveal milky, blank, diseased eyes. Later, when she asks Olivia about what happened to the remaining kitten, Shirley becomes very agitated when it is clear that Olivia is not telling her the truth. This triggers one of Olivia's intense headaches, which ends the conversation in an abrupt and bitter way. The thing about an open casket, and I know it sounds scary, is that it is a great chance to take all the pictures in your head of grandma in the hospital, or grandma without her hair or teeth, or anything else in your imagination, and cover it up with a better picture. I'm going to fix her. That's what I do. Shirley's insistence of restoring Nell's body herself is very telling of her need for control. While everyone insists that it is a bad idea for her to work on Nell, due to how personal and upsetting it will be, she remains adamant about working on Nell herself. She is unable to relinquish control of this very personal and difficult task. Her profession as a mortician is a clear reflection of her reaction to Olivia's funeral. When he was unable to console and coax Shirley to walk up and say goodbye to Olivia's body, a kindly funeral director escorts Shirley down the aisle. She is amazed at Olivia's appearance and is in awe that he fixed her. When he responds with, "Well, that's what I do," that seems to set Shirley on her own path of becoming a funeral director. When Shirley sees Max, a client's son, unable to go down the aisle to say goodbye to his grandmother, she steps in to do the same thing the kindly funeral director from her childhood did for her. She offers him words of comfort and walks him down the aisle to the open casket. Shirley seems to get huge comfort from being able to offer grieving people relief, and she is very good at what she does. However, this is also a sign that she is unable to truly let the traumas of her childhood go. Restoring the dead seems to become a form of catharsis for her, an exercise in control of fixing things. While she is very compassionate to her clients, this becomes a liability for her business. When she gives away services, sometimes at cost or even less, this causes a rift between her and Kevin. This eventually leads to him taking money from Stephen's book profits. Again, she refuses to give control of her finances, even though this is what Kevin's expertise are. As she finishes her restoration of Nell, she is again haunted by the incidents of the box of kittens. She has a vision of the same beetle crawl out of Nell's mouth. She later has a vision of Olivia's ghost with the same ghostly milky eye, who offers her the same purple box that the first kitten was buried in. Again, these visions directly tie the traumas of losing her mother and sister to the box of kittens. The beetle and the undetermined sickness of the kittens seems to be a symbolic theme of Shirley's lack of control over death and the natural order. Her mother, with the ghostly milky eyes and the beetle crawling out of Nell's mouth, blends the two events together, making the traumas almost singular. You know how when you take one of your pictures, you capture something forever, just the way it is? Stories do that for us too. So when we die, we turn into stories. And every time someone tells one of those stories, it's like we're still here for them. We are all stories in the end. As a child, Shirley is seen taking photographs of the family and putting them away in her photo albums. This seems to have carried through into her adulthood, except now, along with photographs, she's moved on to capturing and restoring a person's essence in death. Her cozy family room at Hill House is later revealed to be the Red Room. The Red Room preys on each character's vulnerability and appears in the guise that is most comforting. It is no surprise that Shirley's room takes the form of a family room where she can collect her pictures and keep them safely tucked away in her photo albums. Like all the Cranes, Shirley has never truly recovered from Olivia's death. She carries a lot of emotional trauma that causes her great pain. She tries to deal with this pain by controlling everything in her life. This includes her family, business, and home. This is especially obvious when it is shown that all three are so intertwined that it is impossible to remove one from each other. The funeral home is built into her actual home. Her family live about the funeral home, and both Kevin and Shirley worked at the family business. Home, family, business are all linked and under Shirley's control. She has a huge falling out with her older brother Steve. She is furious with the contents of his book on Hill House. She's very hurt that he would share the family's most horrible trauma for profit. She morally objects to the publishing of the book and more or less strong-arms the family into agreeing with her. Even when the other siblings could have greatly benefited from the book's success, they are forced to turn down Steve's initial offer due to Shirley's adamant request. When the old wounds of the book come up again at the family reunion, arguments escalate, which leads Theo to confess that she has also taken Steve's money for her PhD. Shirley proceeds to kick Theo out when Theo refuses to kowtow to her. She has a seemingly happy marriage to her husband Kevin, but they both have secrets from each other. Kevin has a mysterious bank account that is separate from hers. It is later revealed that Kevin has taken Steve's book money to keep their funeral home business afloat. Of course, Kevin keeps this from Shirley because she is adamant in her moral objection of taking the money. When the truth about the money comes out, Shirley is humiliated that the image of her perfect life was only possible due to what she calls blood money. She refuses to listen to Kevin's explanation that they were losing money due to Shirley's lax business practices. Even though they are partners, it is clear which Harris is actually the Harris in charge. While Kevin is supposed to handle the books and Shirley the bodies, it seems like Shirley handles everything: business, family, and household. Her relationship with the twins also deteriorates. After Nell's husband, Arthur, dies unexpectedly, Nell starts to withdraw from everyone. Taking Theo's advice, Shirley creates a wall between her and Nell due to Nell's declining mental health. Of course, the results are tragic, and this causes Shirley a great deal of guilt. Luke's addiction also causes a huge rift between him and his family. While Shirley has always tried to support him, after numerous failed attempts at rehab, Shirley seems to have had enough. While she continues to support his recovery financially, she seems to have also created a wall between her and Luke. While she cares about all her siblings, she's incredibly judgmental and can be overly harsh. After the strange storm at the Harris funeral home, she walks in on Theo trying to kiss Kevin. This deeply hurts Shirley, and while understandable, she completely walls out both Kevin and Theo and refuses to even listen to an explanation or an apology. Her inability to deal with this betrayal is incredibly telling of her deepest guilt and regret. Shirley is unable to deal with all the upheavals in her life when she loses control, and she cannot ground herself and seems to keep spiraling when others refuse to go with her way. The more control she exerts, the more people she pushes away. It takes an intervention from Nell to stop this doom spiral. Don't lie. You went upstairs with me because of that ring. Because the ring meant you had as much to lose as I did. And that was a calculation, Mrs. Harris. You don't want to look at it, do you? You did this thing. You did it, and you liked it. And you just decided not to look at it. Now, that's you all over. Shirley never wants to look. But Shirley has to look. When the Cranes are taken to the Red Room, Shirley's vision is of her worst regret and secret. It is revealed that the vision of the mysterious man raising a drink to her is actually a man she had an affair with years ago. While she was on a trip alone, Shirley meets a handsome man at a bar. He sends her a drink, and in return, she sends him a strange appetizer. This leads to some friendly banter and some flirtatious conversation. He introduces himself as Ryan, and the two of them bond over their shared profession. Shirley makes it clear that they must keep things professional because she's married. They talk for hours, well into the late hours. Initially, it seems like the conversation has come to an end. Shirley bids Ryan farewell, and the two of them part. Of course, it is revealed that this isn't actually what happened. The vision seems to shift into a more antagonistic tone. Ryan's apparition confronts her, making her admit to the affair. She starts off defensive, calling him disgusting for hitting on her when he was married as well. Of course, this is her attempt to have the moral high ground. Ryan calls her out for being a hypocrite and presses her on the issue. She reveals that because he was a married man, she chose to have an affair with him. They both had everything to lose, so it was a mutual risk. She is then transported to what seems to be her own funeral. Kevin is there, with the kindly funeral director who helped her all those years ago as a child. Kevin says that Shirley knows something most people don't. The instant someone dies, they learn everything. Every secret thing. And when I die, I'm going to wake up in that hotel room and watch every single thing she did. And that scares her so bad, she hopes she'll die first. Like at Olivia's funeral, the kindly funeral director leads her down the aisle, but this time to her own open casket. As they walk, he describes the process of embalming to her. He says, "I fixed her. I ripped out her organs and eyeballs. I sucked the blood and the shit and plugged her holes so she wouldn't leak. Then wired her jaw shut so she couldn't scream. And I painted her face and hands and set her eyelids on spikes so she wouldn't stare. And I hung flowers full of smell and posed her like a dreamer. And now she's fixed and pretty. But underneath, she's a horror. Yeah, we pickle and paint it, but it is still death and rot and ruined. But she is pretty, isn't she?" The Shirley double lying in the casket then proceeds to rise, and to Shirley's horror starts to rip off her eyelid and scratches off the paint to reveal the rot underneath. Shirley is unable to look away and continues to stare in horror. Nell then appears beside her to wake her from this vision. Ultimately, Shirley's story is about her journey to self-acceptance and the relinquishment of control. She must learn to accept things the way things are instead of the way she wants them to be. Shirley's hypocrisy is laid bare, and she must come to terms with the fact that she is flawed and fallible. It is clear that she was so upset with Kevin and Theo, Not exactly with Theo's attempt at a kiss, but because it brought up her own secret that she was trying to hide. Shirley has a tendency to lash out at others when she sees her flaws reflected in them. She tries to look away and pretend like it isn't there, but of course that doesn't fix anything. She forgives Theo for the night of the storm, and later she is seen coming clean to Kevin and asking him for forgiveness and love. She was extremely upset with Steve and blamed him for not answering Nell's phone call. Yet, she, like Steve, ignored Nell's call because she was busy with work. It is clear she lashed out at Steve because she felt guilty about missing Nell's call. It takes Nell telling Shirley that she did pick up Nell's call so many other times when Nell needed her that Shirley is able to forgive herself. At Luke's second anniversary of his sobriety, she's seen happy along with the other Cranes. Ultimately, Shirley's arc is about acceptance of self and others, and the relinquishment of self, not to fear, but to love.